Good morning and welcome to SHOWstudio. The fashion circus is now in Milan, and we're going to discuss Prada this morning. Before starting discussing Prada, I would like my incredible panel to introduce themselves.
I'm Todd, Lynn, a designer.
I'm Trino Verkade from Trino Foundation.
Hi, I'm Anastasiia. I'm a curator and writer contributing to magazines like Days, DD, 032C, and a few others.
Hi, I'm Deborah Milner, and I'm a designer.
And SHOWstudio, by the way, Anastasiia.
And SHOWstudio.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for being here. I'm Mimma, Viglezio, and I'm guest chairing this morning. So we're going to talk about Prada, and I'm very keen about this, not only to talk about Prada, the collection that we're going to dissect together, but also about Prada Miuccia herself. There's been a lot of talking about politics. Recently, I think we can see a lot of politics in the collections from New York to London and very much in the past 2 days in Milan. But Miuccia has been political always, ever since she started. I guess everybody knows now that she was very engaged when she was a student. In the 70s, she belonged to the Communist Party. I have to say that in the Italian culture in the 70s, when the Red Brigades were, raging around, it was important to belong to one side or the other. So being a communist didn't mean what it would mean today, but it meant I'm on the left and I'm not a fascist on the right. So she was there, she was studying political sciences, and then she said, I read it in a beautiful interview in the new issue of Vogue UK this month, she said, I felt frivolous because I did love fashion and my family had this company. And so when I took over, and I was still a communist at heart, but I wanted to show that fashion wasn't stupid, that's why I started doing things that were intellectually complex, and I started create in a complicated way. And then she said, hence the nylon, because in the 80s, nylon was really an idea, and it was really revolutionary because it was going against everything that luxury is and that luxury product stands for. That became the it bag, the it material immediately, and it launched Miuccia career as one of the greatest creative of all time. So, after this long, little long speech at the beginning, one thing I would like to ask you, do you think that Prada being so intellectually complicated and so politicized is what Prada problems is at the moment, which doesn't mean Prada is going bankrupt, but Prada is not growing. So Prada does not talk to millennials, apparently.
Yes.
So what is the problem? Whoever wants to talk.
I think I've mentioned this before. I think that Prada, something we used to really admire about Prada, and certainly for myself working in the fashion business, is for a long time it really controlled its image. It had a really purist image, and it was brilliant at it. And I used to admire it, like if I go back sort of 10, 15 years, because would Prada do that? They knew exactly what their image was. They kept it very tight, they kept it really focused. But times have changed. You look at the success.
You can't control as much.
You can't, and also if you talk about millennials, they don't want to be controlled. It's like, don't tell me who you are, let me have a voice as well. And that's what's changed. And look at Gucci and why their success is because they're going out saying, this blogger has completely, messed with my brand. I'm going to embrace it instead of pull it back.
Yeah.
Let's pay them. And I think that, what I think at one point was a success story for Prada in the way that it had a very tight, controlled message that it was 100% in control of. The world's now changed. Youth has changed. They want a voice. They don't want to be told, and they want to be part of it.
So it's too much top-down, and it's not enough grassroots.
It doesn't embrace everybody anymore, and that's what I think has changed. And that's what you see as success about, the brands that are the brands that everybody's embracing right now and having fun with.
But so does that mean that the clothes, the product, doesn't matter? I mean, whatever she does, the problem is the attitude they have to the world?
Well, I guess if there's not a connection to that customer base or that world of people who want to participate, I think that seems to be the problem, is that there isn't that connection.
You're not talking
and it would filter through into the clothing. If you have a point of view, even, it will have an impact on what you're designing, probably. So perhaps, what they're designing is less accessible for that for the Millennium Mark.
You have a lot of choice, sorry. You have a lot of choice. You don't have to go to Prada for clothes. Literally, you walk into thousands of stores around the world. You buy not because you need another jacket and another coat. You buy something
Because you want to belong.
You want to belong, and you love that brand, and you love what it stands for, and you know, you don't necessarily need another pair of trousers and another shoe.
It's funny because you talk about the control of the brand, and when you go into an actual Prada store, the vision is very much the brand as opposed to like a seasonal thing, or you find that the show collection tends to be this tiny corner, and they're controlling all the other product. And so in a weird way, when you go into a Gucci store, you feel like you've walked into their world of the moment or whatever. But when you walk into a Prada store, you feel you've walked into kind of the formula and the uniform that they've created. And if you don't fit that, then they're not talking to you. So you'll go into a Prada store and you feel like there aren't those elements that maybe entice you if you saw them in an ad campaign are very, very much in the corner. They're not in front of you.
It's true, the show collection is never very prominent.
No, it's tiny, whereas in Gucci it's huge.
I really like the fact that you started our discussion with this story about the history of Prada, because I have a feeling that not...
Of Miuccia more than of Prada, her own.
And basically the political involvement which was behind the brand to start with. And I have a feeling that millennials wouldn't necessarily know this information and this story.
Would they like it?
Yeah, but today I have a feeling that being politically engaged is a great currency for the brand. Like, let's look at Burberry and what they've done with the rainbow, or let's look at, I don't know, even brands which rely on merch rather than on design. Like 032C recently did a collection which was all about their manifesto and what they believe in, and it was really popular because people are keen to own something which they could put on and it would channel what they believe in, actually. So I have a feeling that Prada did have this effect on people back then, but it doesn't necessarily have it now anymore. It's more about, you know, you buy a Prada bag, it's more like, it actually translated, I think, into this more bourgeois value.
It's very grown up.
Part of the establishment.
So it's like, it's about a great bag, a great pair of shoes. It doesn't necessarily about like any kind of spirit, or, you know, even like things like Devil Wears Prada, you know, this is what Prada for the millennials is. It's more, it's luxury, it's old school, it's not really that, it doesn't have this political message anymore, which I think is...
But it's very interesting what you all said. I totally agree, and I would have many other things to say about Miuccia at the time, but I don't want to take up the time. But it's very interesting because in a way, nobody said that the problem is that they didn't embrace the internet fast enough. Because it's not only that, it's also the political discourse, and probably the Prada one or the Miuccia one is a little bit old-fashioned. Today, the world is not, there's no wall between East and West anymore. I mean, it's not about being left or right. This is a very anachronistic way of thinking. It's more about the tribe, it's more about the lifestyle, it's more about freedom. And so her ideology, which is the one of someone in her 60s in Italy, which I understand very well, it's old-fashioned. She can't suddenly start and talk in a different way, because even if I think she was taking the millennium into her story, it doesn't resonate today. But so what's the solution? This is who she is. And Miuccia will not be able to complete it. I mean, she's authentic, so she can't suddenly become someone else. So what's the solution?
To me, the show, I was at the men's show in Milan.
Yes.
Which I actually covered for SHOWstudio. Yeah, which was great. And I think it was a really good, it wasn't even an attempt, it was a success in talking to millennials, I feel, with...
through the product, right?
Through the product and through the styling, through the music, through everything, which through the show as like a complete package. Think just, yeah, it felt really young, very fresh. And then if you scroll through Instagram, you'd see that those bucket hats made it everywhere, and all these minimal pieces, the nylon jackets, they were really, I think they were really successful, at least according to social media, to probably that target audience she wanted to tap in.
Well, we will get into that because there's nylon in the new collection as well, and we will probably discuss if that's more of a sales marketing strategy or Miuccia showing that she did it before. But again, before, before moving on, I would like to provoke especially the designers on the panel. People say, we all know that Prada is a reference for designers, and apparently some young people told me that even the young students now in the fashion schools, they look at the materials that Miuccia uses to, create new ideas and stuff. So she's very much a reference to the older and the younger. And so again, I said, so does the product matter? I mean, is it not enough to be a reference as far as fashion designer? I think Prada is real fashion. It's not a gimmick. And that for me is important. What do you think?
Well, I think it does matter. I mean, for me, it's always been the textiles which have sort of shone out and which I've, noticed probably more than the actual clothes. But I think it's still, if it's a reference for young people, maybe things will kind of turn around again. I didn't even realise that they weren't so, in the news particularly.
And they were not so in the news, Prada, you mean?
Yeah.
Or they lost their cool?
Yeah, I didn't even realise that particularly.
Well, they losing ground in the numbers. So it's their negative growth in their turnover, which is not a very good thing.
No.
Well, they're known for their technical fabric development. I mean, I work with tanneries who work with them, and they develop fabric for 2 years, which is kind of insane.
Before using it.
Yeah, which in our industry is insane that it's that long of development. And so there's a catch-22 in that, one, you can develop quite amazing things, but then potentially the catalyst for the development may be out of date by the time you actually get to use it. It's like a bit of both. And I guess
that's a good point.
And but I also don't know whether those companies have the investment to be able to participate in that way anymore either. Because when I develop fabrics with companies, a lot of times you don't pay for the development, you pay for the product at the end. And if they're developing for 2 years, what's
expensive.
Yeah, how does it work with the mills and the tanneries? And they're so tight and they're so caught. Are they not able to give that type of support anymore? And so I don't know. I don't know the answer for that or what the reality is. But I know that they would spend serious time and serious energy developing these kind of technical things.
That goes back to the tight control you, Trino, were talking about. Like she is looking into every detail.
I was going to say there's two of them.
As far, him, but also as far as image is concerned or look of things, isn't he? I mean, does it take care of creativity as well?
Well, I think they're a brand that has a thread that runs all the way through.
Yeah.
From the beginning of the idea to the way that the store's done to the way that it communicates. It's a great model. Listen, it's an old model.
Anymore,
It just doesn't work anymore. It's just a different time. But it was an amazing model, and I do think part of their success.
But so what about the other older designers, a la Karl Lagerfeld for Chanel, or Karl and Sylvia Fendi for Fendi? I mean,
But Chanel
they
hasn't
didn't
been
really
like that.
adapt.
Well,
He's always bringing new people
he
in.
does. He collaborates with everybody.
You're right.
He doesn't care if something seems a bit off,
Right.
a bit naff. He kind of plays with it.
I have heard also, again, I wasn't there, but I have heard that a lot of the development teams or the senior teams, they're not the kids. They're like the people that have been there for a long time.
At Prada.
Yeah.
And that's not
so
right.
I think these other brands that we talk about are so, they basically just bring the kids in.
Yeah.
Totally.
Because they feel like, if I want to connect with someone, I'm going to bring someone who understands them and not pretend to understand them maybe.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah, I think
interesting.
that's
Not
a very good
pretend to understand, but really understand.
Like we all kind of analyze things and go, oh, I think I can figure it out. And it's like, we can't, because it's like a whole different generation.
Different way of thinking.
Absolutely.
We think different than our parents do.
Yeah.
And, it's
And our kids did things differently than we do.
yeah, of course. The world changes. That's the way it is.
Yeah, so the point is that it's not enough to put some iPads here and there. You really need to honestly understand the language. And it's interesting to listen to Anastasiia, because probably, sorry for the others, but she's the millennial at the table. and what you're saying, what she said, I mean, we cannot deny it. And what she said is interesting, it doesn't talk to you. What about, do you know the Prada product, apart from being a writer in the fashion industry, but do you walk into Prada stores?
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it doesn't. Wouldn't necessarily say it doesn't talk to me, because Prada is still an institution. Everybody who works in fashion would know it, I think, of any age. it's just, I also have a feeling it was very influential not so long ago, let's say maybe 8, 7, even 5 years ago, when they had this really Baroque, colorful, but also slightly digital look, which largely defined, I think, the way people looked on the street. The way
Probably the most copied by the top shops of the
completely,
world.
Yeah, copied everywhere.
The prints were copied so much.
So because it was so popular and so symptomatic of the time, it feels like now there is a time for something else, and it's just probably a natural accelerated cycle of fashion. So that's why actually in the men's show I much preferred minimal black pieces and black nylon rather than remixed prints from the archive, just because somehow to me like the plain, the technical, the futuristic, really sleek stuff just worked. It just looked so much more contemporary. And I mean, also I have a feeling nylon bags, like the classic, the item which was so visionary then, it still does look visionary even now, and I think people really could buy into that.
So nylon could bring back relevance to Prada?
Yeah, to me that's what it is, because I feel like people are more interested in different items as luxury items now, not necessarily a pair of shoes or like a leather bag. They want a bum bag, or they want like...
Hence the success of sneakers, I guess.
Yeah, or they want sneakers. I don't know if sneakers are right for Prada, but like nylon bag is probably perfect.
Well, so on these words, maybe we should go into the new collection, because look number 1 is nylon.
Yeah.
And we will see it in a second. Do we have a film? Oh, that's great. Well, while we see the beginning of the film, I read, I just had time this morning to read Sarah Mower review on this, and she was telling that it was really, really hard to get there, and that it was very dystopian.
They couldn't get in the lift.
They couldn't get in the lift, and then it's all black, and then you could see you reflected. So I also wonder, why do they make it so difficult for reviewers to love you? Because you give them such a hard time in getting there and getting to your seat. But anyway, let's talk about the collection. Have you looked at it?
Yeah, I had a quick look at it.
Yeah. I actually felt for me that it spoke more to me than a lot of other collections she's ever done.
So why?
I actually felt something on it. I mean, I know that she's an amazing designer, very accomplished, and there's a lot of intellectual background to the topics that she looks at, but sometimes it just misses any kind of connection with me. And I'm not saying I have to love it, but sometimes I have to feel a little bit of fear. It feels a little bit, and we spoke a little bit about how people are much more interested in politics right now, and there's a lot of talk about, you know, what's happening in America and whatever, and I feel a little bit of that tension, and that actually is something positive to me, because I don't normally get that from Prada. Well, and it's the overall, and when I read the review about them not getting into the lift, and I read the review about it actually makes it feel better to me, because it builds up that little bit of tension, and I see it reads with the clothes with somebody who's feeling a little bit, you know, pissed off with the world, throwing something over there. It feels young, it feels a bit punk in that way of adding on a bit of torn tulle in different colours, the neon colours. It actually told the story nicely for me.
I totally agree, and one thing that I particularly liked is that people have tried to talk about feminism and this, you know, moment of women by doing the old-fashioned 80s epaulette, you know, the big shoulders, and it's like, this is not feminist. I mean, just people stop to give me that, to make me feel like I'm important, and she didn't do that, and I really loved it. So what do everybody think about what they're seeing?
Well, for me, I thought that, I mean, I like the idea that she's kind of, and she did this with the menswear, where she harked back to like her kind of foundation.
So the self-quote.
Yeah, and I think it was at least one thing that she could do to kind of make a stamp, or like at least let people who didn't know the brand kind of understand the history, where it came from, and kind of the longevity of it. And also like the idea of this nylon that we spoke about earlier, it is quite important right now, because I think that's what brands are able to do with this kind of millennial market. They're able to participate. Also, it's the cost of it. It's the cost of it as well becomes like a little bit more attainable than when you work in other fabrics. It's still not. It's still
Prada.
It's still Prada. It's still expensive, but in terms of like working with other materials, it's a good way to kind of, you know, be able to get some people to participate.
Get a piece of Prada.
Yeah, or even if it's a bag. I mean, even for myself, I was remembering the first piece of Prada I ever bought were like those nylon trousers they did.
Yeah, I have a nylon dress. I have a nylon
You
dress.
have a nylon dress, I have a nylon trouser.
I have a nylon bag.
Yeah, so I mean, it's funny how we all participated in the real core of what the brand was about. And, you know, I think maybe it's time to reinvent that, or like let people know that it's still there.
So it's like self-referencing from the past instead of referencing the 80s, and, you know.
I think it's connecting the past with the present, or trying to, you know, which I think is kind of, that's what they have to do.
But that's what she said. I think in the Vogue interview, she said something that sounds exactly like that. I'm not sure where, but she said, I'm trying to connect the past with the present and make the present relevant. Also, because don't forget that Miuccia probably doesn't believe in relevance for its sake, but she believes in her own relevance. But that again, then is it inclusive? Do we understand what she means? While the chaos of Alessandro Michele's Gucci collection, it's very hard to understand what it was doing, but it's so chaotic that you give up trying to understand and you embrace it, or not, but it becomes easy.
I think
paradoxically.
The other thing with Gucci, though, when you look at it, it's like the characters, the casting, the beauty becomes very, very, people can pick, they can find themselves in there. You know, it's like this.
They can relate.
They can sort of pick one character and go, that kind of is me. And maybe that's another way why that type of brand is able to connect.
Yeah, it's
you know,
true.
where most brands, if the beauty is very, very their vision for the moment.
It is very important what you say about self-references, because here it's not only the fabrics, but if you know Prada, as I've known it for many, many years, the shapes also, those little dresses are very much a reminder of shapes that she, and silhouettes that she always had. What do we think? On my right side of the table. If anything.
I don't really like it that much.
Why is that?
I think it's to do with the silhouettes, because I suppose because I'm really interested in cutting, and I'm sure that they're cut beautifully, but because I don't see any kind of particularly interesting cutting from my point of view, it doesn't.
McQueen.
It doesn't.
It's very different.
Speak to me particularly. I mean, I think the dresses, probably I like those better. And I do like the fabrics, I think they're great, but I don't like the big sort of, I mean, this is just a totally personal opinion.
Yeah, I understand, you know, but it's interesting.
I respect her position, and I do think it's amazing that she's, you know, had the company, been at the helm for 40 years, that's incredible. But my instinct is that I don't particularly like the collection.
I don't think it's the collection that they're looking to sell. I think they're just looking to make a relevant statement. Because
it does look quite young, I would say that. It does look quite fresh and young from that point of view. But I think that there's probably other people doing something that's fresh and young that would have shapes that I did like.
Yeah, I understand that. That's subjective. But it's interesting to hear from a designer who has a totally different... I mean, you come from style-wise and culture-wise from something very different. And I remember when I first came here and I worked among others with Lee, I love what he did, but my eye wasn't used to that silhouette, which was very much a silhouette. You know, I was much more used to these androgynous, actually, because Prada did androgyny in the past, you know, straight down, and that's what I
And I like
always
that
wearing.
too. I do like that too. And I love Comme des Garçons and things like that.
I love McQueen silhouette as much as anybody else. Couldn't have more of it in my wardrobe.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not only the McQueen silhouette that I like. I think it's just because I see the same silhouette again and again. Perhaps that's it.
Okay.
So I don't see a different message or an updating of it. Maybe that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think what Trino said about, you know, the fluorescent colors and the way it's styled, that's probably the biggest novelty in this Prada collection, much more than... The fabrics are self-referencing, and I think the silhouettes too. What do you think, Anastasiia?
I really like the air of sort of 80s dystopia in this. It's because it would remind you of Blade Runner and
very much
things
so,
like this. And I think generally it's quite, this aesthetic is quite popular recently, which is interesting because we constantly think about the future and that the future has arrived or not yet, where we're heading politically. And at the same time, we use this aesthetics for the future from the past, which is actually now our present, which is quite interesting. So actually it's a story.
Don't say again, we use this.
So it's basically, it's how people imagined the future in the past, but their future is our present. Very complicated.
No,
So basically, you know, in Blade Runner, it takes place in 2017 or 2016, I don't remember.
So the first one, was that 2000? Well, anyways,
So basically,
or if you think about 1984.
It was set in a future that no one has arrived.
so basically, I have a feeling there's this anxiety about living in the future. We all have like new technologies, everything moving too fast, and I think it has to. This whole story has to do with this. But at the same time, I think it is referencing the past and
That's
culture from the past. But in terms of clothes, to me, I quite like the fact that you could sort of look at different items and probably pick something which you could integrate in your day-to-day wardrobe, which is, to me, it feels like it's not necessarily just for the red carpet or just for some rich,
so not
or just for or just some wealthy people somewhere. It feels like, oh, I could probably get this. I could probably
That's a
get the
good
jacket,
point.
and I could probably put it on my usual clothes, and probably it will look alright. That's how I feel about it. I mean, it's completely separate to the whole message and the whole dystopia.
No, it's very
But
interesting.
at the same time, you do get this feeling that, in terms of the body types as well, you know, the boxy shape is very
Easy.
Yeah, very easy to wear. So I think that's quite.
She also
That's a
played
good
a little
point,
bit her own. Sorry, she also played a little bit her own way with the utilitarian wear, like the wear with the Prada labels that become the name badges. By the way, Gucci had that with Gucci, so there must be a trend as well, like the label.
Balenciaga did it. Balenciaga
Balenciaga
men's did it for last spring.
Oh, so
I think
they did it
I
first.
think so. I mean,
it's like
probably
the
not,
office-
but I mean,
office
it did.
corporate.
They did these tags that go on the buttons, I think.
So sorry, I interrupted you before. You were saying something.
I was going to say that the other thing too is that quite often with Prada, the way that it's done is that it has this reputation because it's quite often very styled. So
Yeah.
it is these, like you're talking about, these elements of these pieces, and they're very good at putting it together in a kind of quirky, almost what we would call ugly way.
And that's always been me.
Right, and so, but the thing is exactly what you say is that if you break the elements apart, like in most good collections that are styled like that, there's always pieces in that are quite basic, easy to wear. So it's kind of, a lot of the times they kind of push that look, which is probably why a lot of young designers in the past used to love Prada, because it was kind of this pushing the envelope, as it were. They were probably pushing the envelope in that direction before a lot of other people did.
Prada is very easy to wear, meaning it fits. I mean, I'm obviously a Prada aficionado, but it fits easily. If you find pieces from the collection, which is not always easy, it's not something that you love it there, but then if you don't have a model body, it doesn't work. Works perfectly for me.
Yeah, I can't wear Prada. I mean, it doesn't, as a brand, it doesn't suit me, but I also don't think that's the point of the show.
No.
The point of the show is let's resonate and talk about, make the brand resonate, reflect on something which people are feeling. I feel it's not a collection I could wear. It's not aimed at me. Is it aimed at somebody starting to buy back into the bags and buy back into the brand and go into the store and buy, you know, a jacket that they would be doing and probably a repeat silhouette that they've had for a long time?
Yeah.
I think the point is just that they need to be more relevant. They need to play with what people care about right now. They're caring about the future. They're caring about, you know, I think feeling that tension, and I think that's what the show's here to do. It's not for us. I don't think we're going to sit and say they're going to sell loads of those dresses. We're going to see a couple of celebrities who think it's okay to wear Prada again, and we're going to get a couple of these coats in their key stores, but not in all of them.
But I think the key thing to grow the bottom line is leather goods.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they have details of, can you please see if they have details of the bags and shoes and wellies that we see here? And here is my question to you. There has been a war of it bags recently also because there was a it bag fatigue. After the famous Celine bag, everybody saying, okay, that's it. But then Gucci has repushed the crazy, cool, recognizable bag. And now there is like the bourgeoisie is wearing Chanel. God forbid, I think I'll never wear a Chanel bag in my life. And then the one who wants to be cool is wearing probably Gucci. And then there's in the middle something less signed and whatever. Where does this fit? I mean, I love it all, but who cares?
I think that's where
The nylon bag or the turquoise bag or the pink bag, is that a way to make it relevant again? Could that become the it bag?
What's one of the successes of Gucci has been their way to merchandise an amazing collection at price points that have allowed everybody to buy it in. I think a nylon bag that isn't an £800 bag is probably a good way for people to
But
be
it
able
will
to...
be £800, I guess,
Well, that's
600 maybe, yeah. Because the others are
shouldn't be.
2,000.
But it shouldn't be.
I know. We will see what they do. But
it also becomes an interesting point for those people to buy into it, because they're almost like, when it's something historical, so it kind of blends the idea of it's new, but it's not at the same time. It's sort of like
it could be vintage, vintage
exactly.
find, or
kind of like, or it's like I know that this is the iconic product. I buy this because it's iconic.
Yeah.
So I may be participating, but I'm not. I'm still on the outside a bit. It kind of like opens the door for that.
But doesn't that mean that you don't want to belong to the tribe of Prada today because you don't, not you, you in general, you don't think it's cool?
No, I don't think it's about that. I think it's like you're almost going beyond that. You're almost like you're sort of like this idea of vintage. Probably the person
that isn't
who
cool.
finds
You're a curator. You basically, I've curated my wardrobe over time.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, that person would love to find a vintage one that is in perfect condition.
Yeah.
That's better, but that's not going to be so easy.
But
The colour's quite new, isn't it, in the nylon bags? Did they do a lot of bright colours in the past?
well, in the past it was black and red, that cold, I have a red one.
Yeah.
It was almost burgundy, so it was a cold red, never yellow red,
Yes.
blue red, if I can say it like that. And maybe there was a brown, dark brown.
Possibly.
I'm not sure about that, but I can tell you the red and
like
the black
the fact
for sure.
they've got the neon
Certainly
colours.
not turquoise or nylon. But talking about nylon, those wellies with the attached nylon socks
that's pretty
in fluorescent, those could become something. But again, they will become something if the name of the brand is cool. Because if Alessandro Michele had done that, or Demna, they would sell like hot bread no matter the price.
Yes.
If Miuccia does them now, they're cool. I think they're cool. But do you see what I'm trying to say? Again, you can do this if your brand is the brand of the moment.
Completely.
Which I don't think it's nice, but that's the reality of facts.
Yeah, it is amazing that some brands can produce kind of anything. Well, mainly a couple.
Kind of at
produce
Crocs,
anything.
DHL
And people
t-shirts.
will be
That's
desperate
anything.
for them.
Yeah.
I can't quite understand.
Do you think maybe it's a lack of irony, or
A lack of irony.
I mean, the irony in a very, I wouldn't say there's a lack of irony here, but it's more irony in the post-internet sense of the word. You know, DHL t-shirt or something like this. This kind of pushes the boundaries of irony, or...
Yeah, I always say it's like Andy Warhol in the
It can be
70s.
sort of consumer and yourself and the whole fashion industry. Like,
I get
guess
it.
that's a very relevant, at least it was a couple of years ago, a very relevant idea. I feel now people are a bit tired of this, because they're like, look at the world, we can't just sit here laughing about this stuff. But I have a feeling there is something missing in that respect here, which, like with these shoes, which it look kind of amazing, but also ridiculous. You need a bit of, you either need to push it even further, or not as far. So
But do you think Prada as a name brand can afford it today? Do you think they can make it into a success? Much more than the beautiful
difficult to
beige
say.
skirt.
I can imagine, you know, as we were talking about nylon bag, I can imagine somebody buying Prada nylon bag to go with their Supreme jacket and like Balenciaga Triple S sneakers. And
You can or you
I
can't?
can imagine it. I can imagine it. But about the shoes, I'm not sure. I have the feeling also with certain Prada items, they become so popular and so photographed that they get outdated pretty quickly, and then you can't wear them the next season because everybody would be like...
That's quite true, you know. So, well, there's some Prada classics that I can tell you I still wear, and they're still including a coat. But then, you know, the prints and that kind of thing, you're so... Last season, you're so... But that happens with everybody, doesn't it?
No, I don't know. I think a lot
Certainly
of
not with a Chanel suit, but
yeah.
But the clever thing that Balenciaga do with like their Triple S trainer is that they keep producing them in different colorways all over and over and over.
they triple what?
These Triple S trainers they did.
Oh, the trainers, yeah.
But they keep producing them, but in different colors. They do exclusive with all these retailers. So suddenly it's not even about them, it's about the new version or this. And you know that they're just going to keep spinning that out as long as it lasts. But this type of thing, exactly like you say, once you own them or once you see them, how many times are you going to go, oh,
Or something like
not that interesting?
Yeah.
What about Miu Miu? I mean, how are they doing in comparison?
I don't
They
know
seem
about,
much
I don't know
more
about specifically
like
the turnover of Miu Miu, because when I said the figures they're not growing, it's I think the group.
The whole group.
They also own other things.
And they're
but
well reported. That
exactly.
going down every
Because Miu
season.
Miu seemed much more on the button. In terms
Yeah,
of
but it
what
was
they do.
never as big and as successful.
No.
Rather, that's why they brought it to Paris. They wanted to make it clear that it wasn't the second brand, it was another brand of
Right.
the same group, but then it's the same designer. So Miu Miu was always a little bit tricky, and it's not much less expensive at all.
No.
It's more Miu Miu. I think the name gives it to you. It's more, it's girlier. Probably she wanted to do the less intellectual side, but I must admit I'm not very well prepared to talk about Miu Miu because I'm not. I don't know. I never really went into it. But I
Maybe
had
that's maybe that shows the problem. Why I feel like none of us knows enough about this brand.
That's a good point.
And if we follow
Yeah.
fashion, we don't know enough about this brand. That's
Or we
probably
don't. We didn't bother to study it enough. Yeah, I don't know. But yet, I mean, when you go to the Miu Miu show in Paris, it's first of all, it's the one that closes the whole month, so everybody can't wait for the Miu Miu show. But then it's packed. I mean, it's
I
as
like Miu
important.
Miu.
Yeah.
And I've probably seen more Miu Miu around than, or noticed it more.
It's interesting though, because I remember years ago when we would go to Premier Vision to buy fabrics, the Prada effect used to be so clear, but it doesn't seem to be that way anymore. There was a moment where they were so influential with textiles.
Yeah.
And now it's not quite the same. Obviously because the world is different or like brands are like,
There is
but there
more
was a moment where it seemed so consistent that whatever they did, the next season you would go and their influence would be like around you all the time.
Miuccia has always
Color or
influenced,
texture
yeah.
or whatever, and now it's not quite the same anymore. You don't really see that. It's not as clear.
Not as clear. I do think that she still influences fashion, but not as clear, and there's much more. But to go back to its past season, you know, their strong signature, I have this anecdote. I remember the late Franca Soxani many years ago saw me with I had this Prada gown that was the Chinese collection at an event, and she said, oh, that's so pretty. And I said, yeah, but I don't remember if I said I borrowed it or whatever, because it's so expensive and then you can't wear it another time because, and I remember she said to me, I will never forget it, oh, who cares? Because when you're important or a journalist or a VIP, you get whatever you want, and if you're not, nobody invites you anyway. So it was, in a way, she was confirming that, like, you can only wear this stuff if either you can really afford it and you don't care if it costs you $2,000 per wear because you wear it once, or you go in circles where nobody knows that it's last season, or maybe you can wear it 20 years later when it's vintage and it's cool. So I don't know if it makes sense what I said, but it's very true. That could be also a problem, you know. You can't make it into something going forward.
Well, because all these other brands, whether it's Gucci or Balenciaga or whatever, they are basically creating this kind of world in this product where they're even sometimes showing the same article on the following season catwalk. They're making product that doesn't become obsolete.
Yeah.
They're making product that you buy into the brand or you buy into your tribe of
Into the
vision,
print.
and then you wear it for, and nobody cares whether it's a year old.
Because you don't know.
It doesn't matter.
The print, you go into the store and the dress that you bought the year before, it's become a shirt or a sweater, you know.
It becomes you're buying into a brand and it's the brand and it's the coolness of that, as opposed to this kind of seasonal thing. The seasonal thing seems to be waning.
Well, that would be really great, I think.
Because now it's like we don't do all of our sales anyway in the runway show. It's all done before. There's like Like we don't have a winter and a summer now. You're talking global audiences. It's warm all the time in
Somewhere.
you know somewhere. Yeah.
Somewhere like it's somewhere is always 5 o'clock and it's rosé o'clock.
Exactly.
So before to conclude, what is our suggestion? What do we hope or not hope for Prada to do? What's the way forward if we were Prada strategists? No pressure.
I think as we were talking about more product-oriented approach in fashion, when it's not about the seasons, but actual products which becomes your signature. I mean, obviously Prada has vast amount of signatures, but I think nylon and nylon coats and nylon bags could be a perfect item for today. Because if you think, for instance, of brands like Craig Green, who have like his signature jacket is probably what sells so well and which is a huge success. So I think people are looking for this relatively simple item which could be easily integrated into your daily life, particularly the young consumer, I think. So to me, nylon is the way forward.
Very good point. Anybody else has suggestions for Miuccia? And
I heard that they brought back well, it's here, look, they brought back the Prada Sport.
Prada Sport, yeah.
I mean, short term, we know that sportswear is in. Short term, they own it, they can be involved in it.
They own it. It's also a way to show, hey guys, we did it long before you did.
You know, we've got the... sometimes you just have to understand that some brands with the same creative director are not always as relevant. And when one brand goes up, and we know the success of Gucci and Vetements and Balenciaga, the world hasn't suddenly got 40, 50% bigger in luxury that everybody else can stay the same and grow.
Yeah.
If one brand comes up in such a big amount in luxury, somebody else is going to go down. Like,
that's very well said.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with Trino.
Yeah, and I
Maybe
think
get a young team in as well. Obviously, her vision, but get the team in if she has.
It's your vision, but make it relevant.
Yeah, completely. I totally agree with that. I think, and also, from one season to the next, you never know what's going to happen. They could go on a trajectory in a season's time, which basically takes them to somewhere else where they're the next Gucci. You just don't know because they do have power. They're a big brand. They've got retail space. They've got retail partners. They have the potential is there. But I think sometimes it's not always in the brand's control. You know, things happen, and some things happen for the good, and some things don't. And I mean, even with Gucci, it could easily never have worked as it did. I mean, you don't.
If they didn't have the means to.
If they didn't have the means, or it wasn't just the right timing or the right moment. I mean,
everybody got on board.
Yeah, it was literally like the stars were aligned. And I think
I think there is a little bit more than luck.
No, I'm not saying
there is an element.
I'm not saying it's luck.
There is an element,
but there is an element, and when we talk about kind of the way millennials are talking, or the way social media works, or like, you know, things damage can happen to a brand very, very quickly now.
Yes.
And so, you know, so I'm not saying it's luck, I'm saying it's hard work and it's intellect and it's good design and all that.
Strategy.
But behind all that is timing. And timing is luck.
Yeah, there's always a percentage.
You and I were discussing the fact that sometimes to be too early in things, it's not good. It's as bad as being too late.
Too early is like being too late. In fact, sometimes it's worse than being too late, because you actually see other people take those ideas.
You spent all that money and somebody else has just benefited.
Someone else has come on and
Nobody
taken
understood it when I did it, and now it's
and then
out
suddenly, or you don't have the exposure level, or, you know, it's very, very, the fashion industry is very, very complicated.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I really hope that they turn it around, and I have this huge love for Prada, for Miuccia and her brand, and I would be devastated to see it change too much. But on the other hand, I totally understand your point about, you know, let's talk to people the way you talk to people today. So
I think they will turn it around. I don't feel.
Yeah, no, it's not in
I also think they're already doing it. It's like, it already talked to me, and I think it would.
So that's really positive.
Yeah.
Well, you were a marvelous panel, so thank you very much.
Thank you.